Okay, sorry about the mess, guys, but we're starting the build here. I just figured I'd start you off where I'm starting off. So I opened the bags with the main spars, I guess they're called. I'm not sure, but this is the start. Basically just pop these on. These are what mount inside the frame and allow the frame to fold. So you mount all these straight through the carbon fiber. You got to make sure that you put the screw in there the right way, so that when you put the 2mm Allen key through, that you can thread it on properly. So test fit your screws first, and don't over tighten them and crack that, right? Just snug them up by hand. So I'll put all four of those together. Okay, so the instructions aren't all bad. Next step up, I'm looking at the pictures here and I'm kind of just going along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 2 corresponds to bag number 2. Number 3 is these guys, corresponds to bag number 3. So it is kind of straightforward for the assembly. I like how these are nice and anodized aluminum pieces. Don't forget to use your Loctite. You need to use your Loctite. Even on these here, I basically, the trick to that is just thread them all the way in and then just back it off, or back that screw off just enough where you can squirt some thread lock inside the screw and then thread the screw back in. That way you're not losing it all trying to get through all the holes with your screw, right? So I'm just going to keep plugging away. These screws all correspond in here, so again, make sure to use your thread lock and stay organized with your screws. Don't dump them all out on the table because you'll lose them in a second. I always try to use like a little dish or something like that. I don't have one right now, but I'm about to grab one. Okay, so I got the 4. These are for the cross beams that basically bolt right through to allow for your camera mount and such on the bottom. So right now I'm on this stage here. I'm just bolting the ESC connection board to the bottom. And the way they do that, you use these Phillips screws here. You bolt it on in the 2 spots that it says, which is here and here. Then you drop the board on top of the screws and bolt them down again, and it gives it some insulation. And then you solder your wires on and such that way. Oh. Okay, so here's where it gets a little tricky. You have to mount 2, one on each side. So you basically have to mount one there and one here. You screw the top deck and bottom deck together, but this arm needs to be in the center of this, right? And then it'll clip and allow you to fold it and then clip it open. And then this actually bolts the arm itself. Sorry about that. Let me get the right way. The arm itself actually bolts right there. So it's a little tricky, but you got to lay it all out and then put it together. So I'm going to basically bolt everything through the top deck, and then I'm just going to flip it over onto here. And then I basically just got to put it up and screw the bolts on from the bottom. Well, I got it all together now. Well, basically just the frame part I'm going to continue working on. I just thought I'd show. It goes together really nice. I like the way the plastic clips in there. You can easily just snap the arms over, but they're very secure. You almost need to loosen it a bit to snap them off. You don't, or to snap them over. But it goes together very nice. Quite impressed with it so far. I'm going to try and hide my ESCs in here nicely and do a little magic with the electrical system. So I'm not going to put the landing skid on until the end because I don't need it that high off the table. But I'm going to keep plugging away. Okay, so back at her. I got the whole frame built. The arms are snapped in right now, but they snap out, and it actually takes quite a bit of force to get them to lock in there, and they stay quite rigid in either of their homes. So I bolted it all together. I don't have the 2 gimbal arms, or not the gimbal, but the camera mount in yet. Right now I'm just working on the motors. I got 3 of the 4 done, and I just thought I would quickly update this part. So if you look at the bottom, it's got that little X plate there. So I got the fourth one here. You get the carbon. You get 4 screws, countersunk. I'm not sure the sizes. They're small, 3x6s or something like that. This is the carbon fiber plate that you bolt the motor to, and this is the piece. So now you need to make sure that you. The way I find the easiest way is to just pop 2 in, bang bang, drop them onto the motor and screw it in. I actually just put a drop of thread lock on each 4 of the screws before I thread them in, so I don't have to fight with that later. Another trick I do too, sometimes you see my bench is a bit of a mess, but I'll put a drop on my bench sometimes if I got a lot of screws, and then I could just turn the screw in it and put it in with one hand rather than having to stop, set down, put Loctite on, break from the work, right? So it's pretty straightforward. I just thought I'd quickly give you a breakdown on that. So I'll put 2 in here, flip it on, or flip the motor over, put it on the bottom, and then lock the other 2 in, and then you bolt them all right through. If you look at this one here, there's lock nuts on the bottom that are inset into the plastic case, or the plastic housing there. And I made sure to put a little bit of Loctite in there as well, because they're not nylon. So all the vibrations and such of the helicopter could let them thread loose over time. And then the top, the prop, locks on with this piece. It's a really nice design. When you thread it down, it actually pushes down onto this piece and locks it onto the shaft tightly. Well, there's one thing for sure, the mess just keeps growing. Okay, so you can see I got a couple motors mounted on there just to show you. The way that the wiring comes out of these, they're just long enough to come through those housings. So I need to start soldering now. And I'm just going to kind of break down the way I'm doing it. You can see the wiring I have cut up here on the table. They're just over a foot long each. They're enough to reach down these tubes, and they leave about 4 inches coming out of each end. I'm going to have to tie the motors into the ESCs. Now, I'm not going to be able to mount them directly underneath like on some quadcopters. I don't want this to look ugly. So the only real option I have, the battery mounts to the top here in the center. So, that's not an ESC. I can mount my ESCs kind of like this, staggered, 1 and 1. And then these wiring are going to feed down into the tubes, so it's going to be as clean as possible. So these are going to tie in to these, essentially. And then all the power lines have to pick up power from that power block. So I'm going to solder that up. It's nice that they do include the DIN cable for your main power. Basically, you need to solder on all your leads to pick up power to your ESCs. So it takes a little bit of forethought. You need to plan a little bit how you're going to do this to make it look neat. I don't want a whole bunch of wiring left over that I got to wrap up and tape down. It just looks like crap. I want this as clean as possible. So I'm starting with my wiring now. That wiring is small. Well, look at the motors. Right? Tiny wiring. I don't need anything bigger than that. Is overkill because the motors aren't going to use it. Even though the ESCs have 13 gauge or something on them, 14 gauge, 16 gauge. I don't need anything near that. Is that really 16 gauge? Wow, that insulation is thick on there, because this stuff here is 18 gauge, so it's really close. But that's neither here nor there. I just thought I'd break down the wiring a little bit for you. I'm going to start soldering things together. Okay, so here she is all built up. Just thought I would show you the final product. I kind of jumped a few steps ahead, but I'm not going to show you how to solder ESCs and that sort of thing. It's pretty straightforward. Once you get the frame built, it's all a matter of organizing where you want everything to go. Try to keep things as tidy as possible. Now you can see all the wiring and stuff sticking out. Everything's not staying this way. I'm just going to go over some instructional things on how to set these up, and I'm going to tie up some of these wires. I also have a totally different flight controller coming in a couple days. So I'm leery of cutting anything because then I'm going to have to reconnect all the ESCs and such. So I just wanted to kind of show you an overview of the copter all built. So here she is. This is how I set my ESCs up. It was kind of the only way to do it. And then the front flight. Sorry about that. There's my camera mount. And there's an option in here to flip the image over. It works pretty slick. And yeah, other than that, it works really good. I did do flip it over here. My flight controller on the bottom there, or my power block, I did just EC3s just to make it easy. And you see my receiver here under the bottom. So pretty straightforward. I gotta say, it was a pretty easy build. Didn't really have too many hiccups. I had a couple screws that were a little too short. But other than that, it's nothing major. Quite impressed with it for $200. I don't think you can really go wrong. Fires up, no problem. I had no problem calibrating it. Setting up the ESCs, and yeah, it works great so far. I'm gonna have it out first maiden flight here shortly, and we will be back with a test flight video. So stay tuned for that, guys. Lots more to come in the multi-rotor area. This thing will be becoming a complete UAV drone with GPS, waypoints, and mission capabilities. So lots and lots and lots more to come. Thanks for watching, guys. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button for me, and we hope to see you again soon.